23rd of March. And we no, it's a good start, isn't it? We start off by saying that acknowledging that today is a day that people are going to be considering things very much as the anniversary of a year ago today. As a committee, we would like to observe the minute silence at 12 noon and will endeavour to juggle things around to ensure that we can. But I'm minded that we are determining planning applications which are extremely important to all those who have submitted them and are speaking. So don't wish to interrupt speakers. So hopefully we will be able to arrange things that we can just hold a pause for 12 o'clock to be able to observe that minute silence. Okay, members? So I'll just go through. We have our protocols, so just to remind members who I think are probably pretty familiar, but also this is for members of the public as well who are watching to understand what is going on. That, as always, I remind all attendees to please mute your microphones. This is to reduce the background noise. And you can raise your hands if you wish, rather than use the chat box to indicate if you wish to speak. And hopefully I will be able to pick up your hands in the right order. We do have a specific a way of following the applications, which is the case officer will present their report and then registered speakers will be invited to speak. Members of the committee will be able to question each speaker on points of clarity if they so wish. Speakers will be invited into the meeting at the beginning of their particular application and then return to the lobby once a decision has been reached. This is to ensure we just have those in the meeting who need to be here, because if we have a lot of people in the meeting, it can cause problems with all of us with our internet connection. The recommendation itself will be moved and seconded to enable debate. That is not an indication as how the mover and seconder are going to vote. It is just to enable debate to go ahead. At the conclusion of the debate on each application, I shall call for the vote. Each councillor who is in attendance will be called to confirm they were present for the entire item and asked to vote for, against, or to abstain. And as ever, could I please remind members that if anyone is minded to vote against a recommendation resulting in that application being refused, then you'll need to be prepared to give clear reasons for refusal, supported by the relevant policies from the Joint Local Plan, as that is what will be relied on at any subsequent appeal. If any member has a disclosable pecuniary interest, then that member will need to leave the meeting for the duration of the relevant application and will be required to disconnect from the call. They will be invited back to the meeting once that application has been determined. So could I please remind members to remain focused on the application being considered, keep questions and comments short and to the point and relevant on material planning grounds. The minute taker will find it harder than normal to identify who is speaking and what is being said. So please do speak clearly and at a reasonable pace. And where an officer wishes to speak, they will indicate using the chat facility. Officers that we have with us this morning are Becky Folds, who is the Borough Solicitor. We have Cathy Hall, Democratic Services Officer, who will be taking the roll call, the minutes and the votes. Janice Young, who is Democratic Services, who are the gatekeeper and the timekeeper. Pat Weimer, Head of Development Management. And I believe I saw Phil Townsend as well, who's the Devon County Council Highways Officer. And we have one or two other Democratic Services officers who are helping out with the background, smooth running of the IT, at least I hope. Okay, and the planning officers. Now, I am aware that one of the members of the committee is having difficulty accessing and getting online, so and actually seeing the screen. So when we
sorry, Chairman, I can now see the screen.
Right, you're all up and running.
Yeah,
wonderful.
So I am.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you.
Well, now we have everybody. Okay, so I'm now going to ask Mrs. Hall if you can please take the roll call and just check that everybody is present and correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Cheadle. Councillor Cheadle, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm here and I can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier. Councillor Crozier.
IT are just calling Councillor Crozier.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
I'm present and I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Councillor Mott.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Renders. Councillor Renders. Come back to him. Councillor Vashon.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Yelland.
I'm present and can hear.
Thank you. I'll just go back to Councillor Crozier.
You're on mute.
I have just joined this second.
Thank you. And Councillor Renders. Can't see him online at present, so we don't have Councillor Renders.
All right.
Okay. We don't have Councillor Renders. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've just literally got on just this second. It seems to be all right at the moment.
Councillor Crozier, could you just put yourself on mute? Thank you. Lovely. Okay. So thank you very much. And as we can see, that our certain members are having difficulties with IT. So I'm hoping that everybody can stay in the meeting for the whole of the duration. So we will move to the first item on the agenda, which is item 1, apologies for absence. Mrs. Hall, do we have any?
We have no apologies, but we're aware that we haven't got Councillor Renders as yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are invited to declare any personal or disclosable pecuniary interests, including the nature and extent of such interests they may have in any items to be considered at this meeting. Either do it now or when we get to the relevant agenda item. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I will declare a personal interest in all the applications as I'm a member of the Devon Building Control Partnership Board. Thank you.
Thank you. There aren't any others, I don't think. So if you do think of any as we get to them, please raise your hand at the right time. Items request. Hello?
Chairman?
Yes.
Peter Crozier.
Yes.
Yes, I do declare an interest in the Beer Ferrers application. Also, I declare an interest in the Milton Abbott application because the applicant there is a resident in my ward and has consulted me on this particular project.
And
it will make no difference. It will make no difference to my deliberations. I will hold them in equal stead to whatever the outcome is.
Thank you. And your the interest that you had in the first one that you referred to, Willicombe Road, the Willicombe Road one, that's because you're on the parish council. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much. No others? I don't think so. If I can just remind members to all go on mute, it just helps people with their connection. And Councillor Renders has joined us. Welcome, Councillor Renders. Okay. Councillor Renders, can you just speak so you can confirm we can hear you and you can hear us?
Okay, I can definitely hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely. Right. Item 3, items requiring urgent attention. The only thing which is what I brought right at the start of the meeting is I would like this committee to be able to observe the minute silence at 12 noon. Okay. Item 4, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of February, which can be found between pages 1 to 6 on your agenda. Is everybody happy that I sign them as a true and accurate record? If not, can you please raise your hand? Lovely, thank you very much indeed. We will take that as everybody happy. Right, item 5, planning applications. I'm just checking we have all members. Yes. So we are starting off with application number 3424/19/FUL, which can be found on page 7, I believe it is, of your agenda papers. This is a pickup which was deferred at the last committee meeting. So I will hand over to Mrs. Houslander for an update, please.
Good morning, members. Sorry about that. I was muted as well. So yes, this application was deferred at the last meeting, and so I'm just going to provide you with an update as to what's happened since that meeting. I'll just remind you all of the site in that sense, and then just go through the updates. So at the last meeting, the application was deferred to enable a discussion to take place with the parish council and ward members on the improvement of the 2 junctions on Woolacombe Road, and that was effectively the Collytown junction and the junction between the Down and the B3257. That meeting took place fairly shortly after the committee, and I think it was a positive meeting. The applicants attended, as did the highway representative, Phil Townsend, myself, and one member of the parish council, and Councillor Crozier, and I think it was quite a good meeting to discuss the issues which were of concern to the parish and the ward member. So the issues that were discussed was, one of the issues was with regard to the tarmac surfacing in the internal road of the development. That there was concerns previously that refuse lorries, for example, wouldn't be able to turn in the space above the in the space at the top northern end of the site. A new plan, if I just move on, a new plan was provided, which indicates, if I just use my pointer, hang on 1 second. So the tarmac initially stopped this point here, and has now been extended to the full extent of that part of the road, which means that refuse lorries will be able to turn. The other issue which was raised at the last meeting, which was of concern, was the lack of solar panels on the affordable housing houses which are in this section along here. Those have now been added to the buildings. They have been added, but there has been a caveat provided by the applicant to suggest, or just basically to say that the orientation in some cases may, I think particularly this one and this one, may mean that you couldn't actually achieve them on that roof slope, but that will be something which will be controlled at a later date via a planning condition if necessary. Just going back to my update slide. The other issue which members were concerned about, and quite a few objections were received to the application for, and also the parish council were concerned about, was the fact that the access to the site is proposed off Woolacombe Road, which is down here. The first issue was with regard to the fact that the junction at Collytown, which is to the east, and the junction up here to the Bedford Road were considered to be needing improvements. However, at the meeting this was discussed at length, and the applicants confirmed that they weren't able to provide the visibility display to the north because they weren't in control of some of the land that related to that visibility display. I also raised concerns at the last meeting about the potential visual impact of an access off the B road, and since the meeting I've reconsulted with the Tamar Valley AOMB unit to request them to indicate what their view would be if the road access were to be from the northern side of the site, and their comments, I've just copied them here for you. They suggested it would appear to require a substantial amount of hedge to be removed and the loss of historic landscaping and habitat, and they would not support an alternative access on that basis. And the loss would also reduce levels of landscaping, which actually will help to screen the development from the wider AOMB. The entrance display, verges and hedge return would all have a somewhat urbanising impact on a section of road that still retains a rural aspect, despite it being a transition point from the settlement to the more rural landscape beyond. And they also said the entrance would open up views into the development and would undermine the ability to screen the development from the road. The current access from Woolacombe Road, by contrast, is within an area that already reads as being of a more urban character, where the impact of the access is not as harmful upon existing landscape character. Just go back to my update slide, sorry. So yes, and the Highway Authority comments obviously still stand from previously. They have no objection to the Woolacombe Road being used as an access, and therefore are content with it from a highway safety perspective. I just wanted to update members as well. Since the planning agenda has been published, there were a few more letters of objection that came in. However, the issues that they were raising were the same as that have been previously raised, that they were concerned about the use of the Woolacombe Road access and would prefer the use of the Bedford Road access. There was one additional point about flooding. This was raised previously, but the suggestion that the drainage drainage proposed on the site would not overcome flooding. However, we have had confirmation from our drainage experts at Devon that the drainage scheme proposed is acceptable to them. There's a concern also expressed about the fact that these dwellings would not benefit local people, and that no alternative options for an access had been presented. The other issue which also needs to be updated is in terms of conditions. Councillor Mott kindly reminded me that I'd forgotten to add a condition with regard to fibre broadband. So I'm proposing to add this condition at the top of the slide to cover that issue. And also, I also noticed that I hadn't put a time scale on the submission of a lighting scheme. So I've just added that the scheme shall be submitted prior to commencement above slab level. And the rest of the condition is already set out in the planning report. So that's the update from me, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are you able, do you have a slide that will can you just to show the context overall, because the neighbourhood plan talks about the Collytown junction coming forward under section 106 with the South Woolacombe development, which I understand is allocated. Are you able to just put a slide up just to show the context of how that sits over the whole? I know we're looking at what's within the red line today, but it would just give a little bit of context.
Oh, that's it. Can you put the cursor on? That's it. That's Collytown Cross there.
Lovely. Thank you.
The top corner is Quarry Cross up. That's Quarry Cross. And the down junction is where the bus stops are.
Okay, lovely. Okay, Mrs. Househander, are you able to just show where the allocation is for South Woolacombe?
Yeah, the South Woolacombe site is here.
That's that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. So that just puts it into context against the whole. Okay, thank you. Right, I have questions. Hold on a minute. Just let me get my list up. I'll wait for it to come down. I'm assuming the system shows them in the order that they come up. Councillor Renders and Councillor Moyes, please.
Yes, hi. You mentioned that when you visited the site, Councillor Crozier was there, members of the town council were there as well. Have the town council changed their views? Because I got the impression last time that they weren't very happy with the entrance being as it is and were against the proposal that we have in front of us, although they were not against building on that particular plot of land. Can you just confirm that for me, please?
So thank you. Yes, we didn't actually visit the site. We had a Zoom meeting in the same way as this, whereby all of the people that I suggested were present. As far as I'm aware, the Parish Council still have concerns with the access. I haven't had a formal comment from Parish Council since the last meeting, but I am aware that there are still concerns, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
Yes, is it possible to have low lighting, in other words, sort of a foot above the pavement, or do they have to have proper lighting, lamppost lighting?
Yeah, I think the condition that I mentioned about lighting requires them to submit information both about height but also about lux level. So that will ensure that the lighting is of a particular level of light, so that the bats in the southern hedge are protected. As far as I'm aware, they can have low level lights, but I know Mr. Townsend is in the meeting, so he may be able to confirm that from a highway safety perspective.
Thanks.
Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Because it's the first time I've spoken, just making sure everybody can hear me. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, although low level lighting would of course be an option, the Highway Authority would not be able to adopt that as highway lighting. The Highway Authority would only be able to adopt the usual lamp standard lighting. But there's no reason why there couldn't be a private lighting system with low level lighting if that was considered appropriate for ecological reasons.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
Yes, thank you, Chair. There was a reference to the possibility of an egress onto the B3257 from the proposed development. And the reference was the fact that the developers do not control some of the land that would be required. I wonder if Mrs. Houselander can just perhaps indicate which bits of land they're referring to there, please.
Yeah, certainly. The visibility, the entrance would be in this sort of area, and the visibility would extend into this land just here, and this land just here.
So that would require, presumably, the developer to acquire that land to enable the visibility required.
It would, yes, and in this case, that would be probably part of the garden of one of these properties here, so would be potentially difficult.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes, did you have another question, or is that a legacy hand?
No, I had another question.
Sorry, I didn't realise. Go for it.
Yeah, no, that seems a huge amount of space. Has that got anything to do with 30-mile-an-hour limits? And it just seems an awful large splay.
Well, it's quite difficult to show with because the pointer is obviously quite thick, so it's only a small amount of each parcel of land. So it's just like these small areas here. When the applicant looked at that entrance, the transport engineer that looked at it effectively imposed a 30-mile-an-hour limit on the road at that point to make so the visibility display, if you like, was drawn based on a 30-mile-an-hour limit rather than I think it's 60 at the moment. It's national speed limit at the moment. So it was done based on the fact that the 30-mile-an-hour limit had been extended up to beyond the site boundary.
So that still seems enormous. I mean, how wide is it? Display.
I don't know. Phil may be able to help me with the actual sizes, but I think it has to be set back 2.4 meters, and I think is it 20 meters in either direction, Phil? Sorry to be a bit vague.
Sorry, yeah, perhaps I could help here.
Yeah.
The engineer, the plan that has been prepared, which does not form part of the planning application, shows sight lines of 2.4 by 43 metres in both directions to the same side of the road in accordance with national design criteria. That is assuming that a 30-mile-an-hour extension has been put in place. If the 30-mile-an-hour extension hadn't been put in place, it would need to be even further than that. As I said, it's shown with 43 metres on the plan that I've seen, but it would need to go further than that, possibly 70 metres in each direction. So the 43 metre is very much a concession. I think it may be deceptive from the photograph we've got in front of us, but the main reason the impact is so significant is because we don't have a 2 metre margin in this instance. It is the edge of the carriageway is the edge of the highway. There is no sort of margin into which the 2.4 metres would be accommodated. That's why the impact of the 43 metres in both directions is more significant.
So are you saying that the entrance onto Woolacombe Road will have the same amount of expanse? Because that looks a much smaller area.
I'm not entirely sure what the question is there. The visibility display is based on the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit reduction, which hasn't actually taken place, and it's 43 metres in each direction from 2.4 metres back. But because there isn't a highway margin there, the 2.4 metre impact on that hedge is more significant because it's taken back further into the site.
I think what Councillor Moyes is asking for the comparison with the entrance or exit onto Woolacombe Road.
Thank you.
The Woolacombe Road entrance has a margin, so the impact of the 2.4 metres is virtually within the verge, so there's virtually no impact on the hedge at all.
Right.
Right.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Moyes?
Not really, because looking at the photograph, it looks virtually the same, but okay, thank you.
All I can say is that from a site inspection, it is considerably different. The hedge abuts the carriageway on the B road, but there is a margin, a grass margin between the carriageway and the hedge on the Woolacombe Road frontage.
Councillor Pearce, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I am wondering why these concerns were not raised when the neighbourhood plan was being put together, because all agencies were involved and made aware of what was coming forward under the neighbourhood plan, and surely this should have been identified at that point rather than causing us a lot of grief now, you know, with what's coming forward. I find it quite bizarre that we've got, you know, a major issue coming out of the woodwork because of the amount of hedgerow that's got to be removed for the entrance to go in there. Now, the preferred entrance into this site, when development came forward, is stated as being onto the main Tavistock-Burlston Road. And yet now we're being told there's a huge amount of hedge got to be removed. It's totally bizarre. And I just wonder why the agencies involved had not flagged this up when the neighbourhood plan was being put together, because they all have input into the neighbourhood plans.
Who would like to pick this up? Mr. Weimer, is this one for you possibly, because how neighbourhood plans are adopted and planning inspector?
I'm not sure I can answer the Councillor Pearce's question, to be honest, because without being personally involved in the neighbourhood plan, I honestly don't know who had what input at that point. Okay, so I'm sorry, I can't answer the question. Although I would have assumed that the A&B partnership would have had an input, because it's not just the highway issue; it's also the concern from the A&B partnership about the loss of the hedge. So I would have assumed they would have been consulted and made comments, but without going back through the documents, I honestly don't know.
No, and I mean, the neighbourhood plan gives the preference as that, but the alternative is the Woolacombe Road. Councillor Crozier, I know you do sit on the parish council.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, or Chair Lady, I should say. I'm fairly new to this. The neighbourhood plan was produced before I became a councillor. I was only a parish councillor 9 months before I became a district councillor, but I've learned a lot from the neighbourhood plan, and Devon Highways is listed in the back of the plan. I'm going to say that and so was the AOMB. What gets my goat on this is the fact that we're still getting interventions from these agencies. Now, fortunately, I saw this intervention this morning when I turned on my computer to check over some facts, that Ben Dancer from the AOMB put an intervention in late last week, and he actually emailed it to me at 8:30 this morning to make sure I saw it. and I've actually emailed him back disagreeing totally with what he has said. This hedgerow is not a valuable hedgerow. Over 50% of it has already been removed for the bowling club's splay. The amount of hedgerows left is fairly minimal. There's 22 metres or around 22 strides, I should say, not metres, because I strided it out this morning, of complete hedgerow left out of 58. So the rest of it has been diminished by breaking it down and the hedge bank down to a level that gives a splay from the bowling club. Now, in many developments of this nature, hedgerows can be moved. There's no reason why this hedgerow cannot be moved back enough to give the splay required. Now, the reason for this road being put there in the first place is because one of the attributes of neighbourhood plans is they take into view safety and safety of their roads within the village. Now, highways only takes in safety on the grounds that if somebody's killed or we have serious accidents, a number of serious accidents, we might do something. What the village is trying to do is be proactive to reduce any likelihood of accidents being had. And I think this is where we have a difference of opinion. I'll close it there, but there is definitely a lot to, in all the paperwork published online, there's virtually no mention of the B3257 as an access.
Okay, thank you. Does any of the members have any further questions regarding this? You need to be clear in your heads.
Everybody's frozen.
Right. Do any of the members have any other questions? No. Okay, just checking that everybody can hear, that everybody's not frozen out. Councillor Crosby, would you be kind enough to perhaps pop your hand down? Thank you. If you can. Okay, now with a deferral, the speakers who had spoken before don't have the opportunity to re-speak because you can only speak once. We do have a newly registered objector who didn't speak last time, and so I would like to invite Mr. Reid. Could you? I wonder if you could perhaps put your microphone on just so as we can make sure we can hear you.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you very much for the invitation.
You can hear me. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, as I'm sure you've already been briefed, but again, we do have members of the public watching who won't necessarily be aware. You do have 3 minutes in which to make your presentation. About 30 seconds before that 3 minutes is up, Mrs. Young will just give you a quick 30 seconds just to let you know. And when you get to the end of the 30 seconds, she will say time. And I would ask you then to please wrap up with your last sentence if you haven't already done so. Otherwise, I shall have to unceremoniously stop you. At the end of your at the end of your presentation, members will be able to ask you some questions if they do so wish. So over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes. If you could start timing from now, please. I share the many community concerns that the provisions in the Bearfarers neighbourhood plan are being ignored in this application. The current plan layout shows road access onto Woolacombe Road, ignores the recommendations within the neighbourhood plan. This application was deferred because the highways proposals were unacceptable. New investigations suggest that the developer and others have misled the planning authority regarding road access. They stated in their transport statement that Bedford Street required a 140-metre splay onto a 60-mile-an-hour road. Not possible, the boundary is 56 metres. Instead, they produced 2 plans, but only used the one showing the Woolacombe Road entrance of 33 metres and negotiated with highway officers to extend the 30-mile limit on this road. The highway officer stated he had not considered Bedford Street as it was not put before him, even though he is legally required to consider all neighbourhood and statutory plans. Why did he ignore what was clearly stated in our policy H2 of the neighbourhood plan? Not consider the whole site, but instead accepted a potentially dangerous alternative. Previously, the Bedford Street entrance was considered acceptable to the ANOB, and a local ecologist considers that the northern boundary hedge is a preferable area for bats, unlike the Willicombe Road, which seems to be a bat transport highway. Members of the committee, I ask you to refuse the present application, request a developer comes back with a new layout incorporating the Bedford Street entrance. Slide 1. The 3 photos show the point on the road for the creation of the new entrance. Please note cones showing the various measurements.
Sorry, could I interrupt you there, please? I think we've lost Councillor Crozier.
Okay, I'll wait till you're ready,
Okay.
please, ma'am.
Yes,
Thank
if you'd just like to pause a minute, we just need to wait while we get Councillor Crozier back, and we can also ensure that Ms Auslander has got the right slides up as well.
Yeah, we do suffer very poor broadband in our part of the countryside here.
Yeah, it's the cry of everywhere since we've been running the planning committee like this. We've never managed to get through a whole one without losing a few on the way.
Can I just confirm that this is the first slide?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll just pause proceedings while we wait for Councillor Crozier, and I would invite you please just to mute while we do so. Thank you.
I'll do that, certainly. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And the timer, of course, will have been paused.
Has somebody rung him?
Yes, IT will be on it, Councillor Renders, so we just need to pause and wait until he can be brought back in.
Okay.
Councillor Crozier's PC is just trying to reconnect.
Thank you.
Chair, when Councillor Crozier comes back, I believe that he may have dropped out for most of the speakers' presentations. I wonder if we could ask Mr. Reid to start from the beginning again once we have Councillor Crozier back.
Yes, we'll do. It's only fair. We'll do.
I'm happy with that, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, we will start you from the beginning. It makes it much easier. Let's just hold fire just for a minute.
Chair, can I confirm that the volume level was okay for listeners?
Yes, you're fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, can I confirm that the three pictures on the first slide are all visible to the councillors? On my screen, I can only see one picture.
The pictures will have to come through one at a time. I think it's the only way they can be shown on the screen.
We put them on a A4 presentation.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I think they've been put on individually, so they will come one after the other.
Okay, so all three will need to just be shown as you're speaking, presumably.
That'd be super, Councillor Chairman. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Ms Houselander, if you'd like to just rotate once we get Councillor Crozier back in, if you just rotate through the three of them for a minute so members can see all three.
Thanks.
And I can confirm that on my second slide, I do mention each picture separately, so you may be able to bring them up individually as well.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Is Councillor Crozier managed to get back in yet?
We understand that he is connecting now, but he hasn't quite yet joined the meeting.
Okay, I would suggest that once he comes in, he turns his camera off. It might be helpful because poor connection in that area. Two members from the area both trying to get on broadband just might be a bit too much for the Beer Ferries internet provision.
Chair, my broadband hasn't crashed yet. I could turn my video off as well if it helps. I don't know. Depends what the IT thing.
It might help just to let him come in.
I'll do that now.
Thank you.
It looks like Councillor Crozier has rejoined us.
Okay.
I have.
Thank you, Councillor Crozier.
I don't know if you missed any of my
That's fine, Councillor Crozier.
Earlier,
Councillor Crozier, if I can just stop you a second. If I can suggest you turn your camera off, and Mr. Reid has done the same. I think
my camera has been off all the time, so it's only restarting.
Okay, lovely. So if you have your camera off, and it might just help with your streaming. Okay, so Mr. Reid, thank you for your patience. You're welcome, as we said, to restart your presentation from the beginning to ensure that all members can hear. So when you're ready, we have seen you. So if you wish to put your camera on, you can, or if you wish to stay off, that is entirely up to you. So when you're ready, off you go. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Good, thank you. So I've left my video off to save on screen size. Right, thank you. I'll start again. I share the many community concerns that the provisions in the Bear Ferrers Neighbourhood Plan are being ignored by this application. The current planned layout showing the road access onto Woolacombe Road ignores the recommendations within the neighbourhood plan. This application was deferred because of highway proposals are unacceptable. New investigations suggest that the developer and others have misled the planning authority regarding road access. They stated in their transport policy that the Bedford Street required 140 metres splay onto a 60-mile-an-hour road. Not possible. The boundary is 56 metres. Instead, they produced two plans, but only used the one showing the Woolacombe Road entrance of 33 metres and negotiated with highway officers to extend the 30-mile-an-hour limit on this road. The highway officer stated that he had not considered Bedford Street as it was not put before him, even though he's legally required to consider all neighbourhood and statutory plans. Why did he ignore what is clearly stated in our policy H2 of the neighbourhood plan? Not consider the whole site, but instead accepted a potentially dangerous alternative. Previously, the Bedford Street entrance was considered acceptable to the ANOB, and a local ecologist considers the northern hedge boundary is a preferable area for bats, unlike the Woolacombe Road, which appears to be a bat highway transport highway. Members of the committee, I ask you to refuse the present application and request the developer comes back with new layout incorporating the Bedford Street entrance. Slide 1. These three photographs show the point of the road for the creation of a new entrance. Please note the cones showing various measurements. Our neighbourhood plan recommends, for safety reasons, the 30-mile sign be moved towards Quarry Corner. Extra benefits include a shorter display into the development. It's the same length as the Woolacombe Road. Also, the 33-metre splay avoids removing any Devon bank, while street lights will be away from bat migration routes. Slide 2. My proposal to you is that you direct the developer to resubmit the application using layout option C. Option A, reject this existing site plan. B, this shows the developer has a pre-application drawing for an entrance onto Bedford Street. C, please adopt the revised layout which meets the condition of the neighbourhood plan. I conclude by emphasising the crucial importance that planning applications with any accompanying road considerations be compliant with the neighbourhood plan. To ignore the contents of such a plan is damage the authorities' standing within the community, and to risk by ignoring foreseen safety measures with governance and legal liability issues in the future. The housing development is for people, so the road access must serve the safety of these people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reid. Members, do you have any questions for Mr. Reid? Nothing coming forward. So thank you very much indeed for your time, Mr. Reid. Of course, you're welcome to remain, and it might be helpful though if you do leave your camera off for the sake of everybody in that particular area. Okay, lovely. Now, and so now we move to ward member. Now, Councillor Musgrave did have a presentation which he wished to make, and he has asked if Mr. Hall would read read his presentation out. I'm just having a look to see if he is actually on the meeting, if he's available to take any questions that might arise. I can't see him in the list.
I don't believe he is, Chair.
Okie dokie. In that case, Mr. Hall, would you be kind enough? Of course, Councillor Musgrave would normally have 5 minutes as a ward member. So, Ms. Hall, you do have the 5 minutes on his behalf to read out his statement. Thank you very much. And of course, Ms. Young will let you know if you're getting to the end of the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Madam Chair and councillors, your planning officer has followed our neighbourhood plan and stated that 2 of the material considerations are highways and pedestrians. But the Highways Department have ignored the neighbourhood plan recommendation that the site entrance should be on Bedford Street. They have stated to us that no application has been made to them on this issue. The developer states that the visibility displays cannot be achieved on Bedford Street as it is a 60-mile-an-hour road. But he ignores that this would become 30 miles an hour in place of the Woolacombe Road proposal, and the adjacent bowling club entrance is on the 60-mile-an-hour stretch. The 2 alternative routes are unacceptable as they will have to choose between 2 different crossroads, Bedford Street and the Down, see photo 1. This shows how far a vehicle has to enter the major road to have clear visibility. And the other junction, see photo 2, can we have the slides, please? Shows the Collytown crossroads with similar hedges.
So I'm sorry, I don't have any additional slides in the presentation, so I'm not quite sure what happened with those.
Right, I was
sorry
there this morning.
Sorry, no, there aren't any.
Photo 3 is again the Bedford Street junction, the route for town and school buses, the village lorry route and the road to Weir Quay. Over 350 vehicles use this in the morning peak hour. There is ambiguity about street lighting and road adoption. Condition 8D imposes street lighting, whereas the developer, paper 17412, states there will be none, based on an ambiguous bat survey of the southern hedge being a bat flying route. However, they have removed half of this hedge, which he states will be replaced with a 1.8 metre high boarded fence. The site will be a black oasis surrounded by streetlights with Downview Estate to the west, the Bowling Green floodlit rink to the east, and the main traffic route to the north. What about the safety of the residents, especially disabled users and children? Not to mention the bowling club members using the public footpath. Non-adoption of the site's roads also have an effect on rubbish collection, with a parallel situation to Downs View, 17 houses, which would have been in photo 4, which is causing unbelievable tension amongst local residents. The minute rubbish area shown will still have to cater for 11 houses against 17 of Down View. Surely members cannot accept such a situation in a rural village. A major part of the AONB and adjacent to the World Heritage Area with a site which is also on top of the unique Permian Ridge. Finally, I would ask you to consider referring this application to enable the planning officer, highways officer, developer and ward members to come up with solutions that are acceptable not only to us but to the future residents of this development and of the parish. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can we just clarify regarding those Councillor Musgrave made reference to photographs? Are these photographs that he has submitted, or are they photographs that were part of the original planning application?
They were photos that he'd submitted, Chair.
And have they come through?
They had come through, and I was hoping they were on the end of the presentation.
Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but we've lost Councillor Crozier.
Okay, then we will pause the meeting again, and perhaps it might be possible for those photographs to be found, so because they are part of his presentation.
Yeah. We'll see what we can do, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.
Hello.
Sorry, Chairman, could I just thank you? I apologise for my situation. It really is unique, and I do appreciate Kathy being able to read that out for me. Thank you.
That's okay, no worries. Members might have some questions, but we need to pause for a minute and wait because Councillor Crozier does have IT issues, and he keeps being losing his connection.
Chair.
Yeah.
I've been doing some digging. I think I've got the photographs. They appear to have come through to DM late yesterday afternoon.
Right.
But because of people being on leave, they weren't picked up. So I'll see if I can find a way of getting them on my screen and sharing my screen, if that helps.
Okay, thank you.
Is that sharing okay?
Yes, we can. Those are the photograph. That's a photograph. Yes, it's possible just to rotate them, possibly because the presentation itself is finished. But
well, I was going to wait till Councillor Crozier.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm just double checking. I've got the 4, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
We've only seen the one, but yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah, only one came up. The one that's there.
Okay, okay, let me try that again then. I think it was how I was sharing. So that's the first one. That's the second one.
Yeah.
That's the third one.
Yeah.
And that's the fourth one.
Yes, and we have actually seen those photographs. We saw those last time.
Yeah, I certainly recognise 2 of them for sure. But I'll leave this one up and go through all 4 of them again once Councillor Crozier is back online.
Yeah, thank you.
Chairman, for information, if I may, that recycling and residual waste collection at the entrance to the Downs has now been resolved because the highway has been adopted, and from this week collections began from each individual house on that estate.
Right, can I just stop you, Councillor Pierce, because obviously Councillor Crozier isn't in here. I think that's possibly might be something you want to bring up in debate to inform members once we are sort of back.
Yeah, he is aware, but I'm quite happy in debate too.
Yes, please, if you would. That's trying to run this with the proper procedures, which is a little bit challenging at the moment with IT keep dropping out. It's very easy for us to get sidetracked.
Ours has been terrible this last couple of weeks. I can't, if I switch my video on, I lose everything.
Yeah, okay.
Just
Chair, I wonder it might be possible to get Councillor Crozier on the phone instead of trying to get the internet to work.
Yes, we officers are trying. There is a solution that's working. There's an issue with the internet at his end, and he's on his way to a different location. So if members would just be patient, please. It is one of the difficulties that we have with this particular planning committee, of the need that all members do need to be present and do need to hear everything that is being discussed, and particularly as Councillor Crozier is the ward member for this particular application. So we really can't move on until we have him back in the room, unless we have his consent to do so.
Chair, this is Graham Reid speaking.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
We can. How can I help, Mr. Reid?
Well, I can contact Councillor Crozier and suggest he comes up to my house. We're within a 3-minute drive, and he can use.
He's gone up to the hall, wherever that is, to connect.
Oh, okay, he's gone up to the parish hall. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
It's just so irritating for everybody.
It is indeed. My apologies.
We need to invent something to do whilst we're waiting.
Bring your knitting, Councillor Cheadle.
How are the broadband working group getting on?
I think members, rather than getting into discussion on it, because we're still live streaming, I don't want members to lose the momentum of what has been said beforehand. So, can we not digress, please? Again, just to repeat for the members of the public who may be watching either live on Facebook or YouTube, I do apologise for the delays. One of our board members, or one of the members of the committee, beg pardon, is having difficulty connecting to the internet, and his connection keeps breaking out. He is endeavouring to find another source of connection that's a bit more stable, and until he returns, we do need to just pause proceedings because he needs to have been able to have heard everything that is said. So please do bear with us and do apologise for any inconvenience. Thank you.
Chairman, Peter Crozier speaking. I am sharing Mr. Reed's computer.
Okay, Councillor, we can only just hear you, but we can just about hear you. So as long as you can raise your hand when you wish to speak. What I want to clarify, though, is if you're sharing Mr. Reed's computer, does it mean that when you raise your hand, it'll show on our system as Mr. Reed? Is that correct? I can't hear you at all now, Councillor Crozier.
Mr. Reed's computer is on mute.
I will try and reboot my computer so I can get on separately, but
I can hear you.
To continue, I can listen in and get my computer going.
Okie dokie, lovely, thank you. I will clarify for the members of the public then who are watching that Councillor Crozier is currently sharing Mr. Reed's connection. So if a hand comes up from that requesting to speak, I will allow him to come in on the understanding it is Councillor Crozier. Mr. Reed does know that he cannot speak again. So, okay, we will continue as we were. Councillor Crozier, I do need to be, can we just be absolutely clear though, because you're a member of this committee and it is absolutely clear that your position regarding this application, that you are coming before it with an open mind and prepared to listen to the views of all members and officers and all those who have spoken and may speak.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so it does mean, because Councillor Crozier obviously missed some of Councillor Musgrave's presentation, we will need to redo it to ensure that he has the opportunity to hear. So Ms. Hoare, if I can ask you to go again for that presentation, thank you. And Councillor Crozier, if you do wish to turn the camera off, it might help your stability. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just do a roll call as well, just to make sure we've got everybody in, please?
Okie dokie.
Councillor Cheadle.
Hear and can hear.
Councillor Crozier.
I'm here. I can hear.
Councillor Hipsey.
I'm present. I can hear.
Councillor Mott.
Yep, still here.
Councillor Moyes.
Present and can hear.
Councillor Pearce.
Present and can hear.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Present and can hear.
Councillor Renders.
Yes, present and can hear.
Councillor Vachon.
Present and can hear.
And Councillor Yelland.
I'm present and can hear.
Thank you.
Okay, let's have another go, shall we?
Thank you.
Councillor Musgrave's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair and councillors, your planning officer has followed our neighbourhood plan and stated that two of the material considerations are highways and pedestrians, but the Highways Department have ignored the neighbourhood plan recommendation that the site entrance should be on Bedford Street. They have stated to us that no application has been made to them on this issue. The developer states that the visibility displays cannot be achieved on Bedford Street as it is a 60-mile-an-hour road, but he ignores that this would become 30 miles an hour in place of the Woolacombe Road proposal, and the adjacent bowling club entrance is on the 60-mile-an-hour stretch. The two alternative routes are unacceptable as they will have to choose between two different crossroads. Bedford Street, the Down, see photo 1. This shows how far a vehicle has to enter the major road to have clear visibility. And the other junction, see photo 2, shows the Collytown crossroads with similar hedges. Photo 3 is again the Bedford Street junction, the route for town and school buses, the village lorry route and the road to Weir Quay. Over 350 vehicles use this in the morning peak hour. There is ambiguity about the street lighting and road adoption. Condition 8D imposes street lighting, whereas the developer, paper 17412, states there will be none, based on an ambiguous bat survey of the southern hedge being a bat flying route. However, they have removed half of this hedge, which he states will be replaced with a 1.8 metre high boarded fence. The site will be a black oasis surrounded by streetlights with Downview Estate to the west, the Bowling Green floodlit ring to the east, and the main traffic route to the north. What about the safety of the residents, especially disabled users and children, not to mention the bowling club members using the public footpath? Non-adoption of the site's roads also has an effect on the rubbish collection, with a parallel situation to Downsview's 17 houses, photo 4, which is causing unbelievable tension amongst local residents. The minute rubbish area will still have to cater for 11 houses against the 17 of Downview. Surely members cannot accept such a situation in a rural village, a major part of the AONB and adjacent to the World Heritage Area, with a site which is also on top of the unique Permian Ridge. Finally, I would ask you to consider deferring this application to enable the planning officer, highways officer, developer and ward members to come up with a solution, with solutions that are acceptable not only to us but to the future residents of this development and to the parish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hall. Councillor Musgrave is present in the meeting, so if members have any questions, they can be addressed to Councillor Musgrave. At least he is shown as present on the list. Do members have any questions? No, looks like not. So thank you very much indeed for that. Okay, as I said before, other registered speakers who have registered don't have another option to speak. So unless any members have any further questions for the planning officer. No. Okay, have we still got everybody present?
Speak quickly.
I'm registered to speak.
Councillor Crozier, you have spoken once as the ward member last time. I do have the discretion to allow the ward member to come back, but it would have to be purely on the reasons that were for deferment in the first place. Your other option, of course, is that you can speak in debate. Well, you can do that anyway. Do you still wish to speak?
Yes, please, because I think it will help the debate.
Okay, thank you. Then again, you have that 5 minutes. So
okay. I'll do my best to keep within the time limit.
Please do. You will be stopped else. Thank you.
From the talks alluded to earlier, there was no evidence to support ruling out Bedford Street access to this site. The Parish Council wrote to the Senior Highways Office and received a detailed supposition that the question had not been asked, so they could not comment. Are you getting feedback? All right.
I think we might have lost Councillor Crozier again, or maybe. Can I ask all members and officers if you would please just turn your videos off?
Chair, we're getting feedback because Councillor Crozier is on as Graham Reid and as himself, so there's a double echo there.
Okie dokie. Well, let's pop Mr. Reid on mute, which might help. Councillor Crozier, can you?
Okay.
Log out Mr. Reid.
That's better.
That's better.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you start again, please?
I'll start again.
Please.
From the talks we had with the various officials, it became clear there was no evidence to support ruling out Bedford Street access to this site. The Parish Council wrote to the Senior Highways Officer and received a detailed submission that the question had not been asked and they could not comment. The Bedford Street option would not have been in the neighbourhood plan if it was not a viable option. Remember that neighbourhood plans go through several layers of detailed planning and scrutiny of all the relevant parties before they're voted on by the local community. In this case, Mr. Lamb requested from Highways a copy of their recommendations in December 2020. This was not forthcoming, and first sight of this was when last month's papers for this committee were presented. Why was this paper not put on the planning portal in January? The Parish Council had taken advice from a very experienced planner who helped them in the production of the neighbourhood plan. He has reviewed all the relevant documents and gives insights into the omissions and errors that have been made. I will focus on the principal ones as time precludes me from giving them all. Firstly, the Planning Authority and the Highway Authority are duty bound to consider all statutory plans relevant to an application, i.e. the local plan pertaining to West Devon, the JLP in this case, and a more detailed adopted plan for Bere Ferrers Parish Council to 2034. This also applies to developers and their professional advisors. The transport plan submitted makes no mention of the neighbourhood plan. Why not? When the neighbourhood plan is looked in full, the next development site for 20 houses has only one option, and that is to exit onto Willicombe Road. This is the only road frontage of the land from the south. Any traffic assessment must surely consider the cumulative effect of both these sites with 50 homes on an existing difficult junctions between Willicombe Road, the Down and Bedford Street. These are both considerations that should have been made by the parties bringing this application to committee. The Highway Authority also makes reference to the Planning Authority may have some issues with the formation of a new access road to Bedford Street, frontage 2. This appears to be a reference to the theoretical sightlines required for an access onto the B3257 from the centre point of this site, assuming that part of the road remains with its current 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. The assessment fails to look at the alternatives of providing access onto the B3257 from north of the site to take advantage of better visibility along the 3257 and moving the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit beyond it. So this access point falls within it, thus reducing the land requirement for sightlines and the impact of the existing hedge. Neither the Planning or the Highway Authority appear to have considered these alternatives as required by the neighbourhood plan. Why not? Finally, the Highway Authority at no point made clear what parcels of land are in its ownership and could possibly contributed to help towards finding a more satisfactory solution to the current difficulties. It is clear that there have been omissions by all, and it is crucial that the local Bere Ferrers neighbourhood plan should be exhausted before any different option is explored, and only with the consent of the parish council, who did not spend 5 years compiling a plan to have it trashed at its first test. The Bedford Street option would not have been in the neighbourhood plan if it was not a viable option, which I repeat. The parish council is happy for this land to be built on, and the houses will be in the process of being built now if the neighbourhood plan had been followed to start with. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Crozier. Do any members have any questions for Councillor Crozier?
We haven't lost them, have we?
No, everybody's still present. No questions coming forward. Thank you. I will risk putting my video back on. Councillor Mott, you have a question?
Sorry, yes, I just want to check. Councillor Crozier raised a few questions. I didn't know if the officers or anybody wanted to come back to answer those.
Okay. Does anybody any of the officers wish to make a comment, or shall we take the rest of the questions first? I'll take the rest of the questions first. I think Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chairman. The question is for Mrs. Houselander. I didn't get my hand up in time. Am I still able to ask her a question?
You can do, but I'll bring you back in once we have exhausted the questions to Councillor Crozier. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Chair. I'm getting a tad confused about the evidence we've got this morning. I seem to recall when the planning officer gave her report that the Zoom meeting she'd had concluded that the parish council stroke neighbourhood plan were, if not content, except, hello, there's something funny going on in the background here. that some concord had been reached. Yet, from the evidence we've had from both Councillors Musgrave and others, suggests that the neighbourhood plan authors are still furious that their advice hasn't been followed. I don't know if Ms Houslander or Councillor Crozier can sort my confusion out.
Well, we are in a question to Councillor Crozier, so it seems to me the main issue seems to be around the junction, that junction, which I don't think has been. If you're not speaking, please could I ask everybody put themselves on mute?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier?
Yes, the short answer is yes. The Parish Council and the authors of that neighbourhood plan are totally, I won't use the word off, about the way this development has been managed. What actually annoys us as much as anything is the meetings that go on behind the scenes and are not actually evidence on the portal. We had one at this meeting we had with Highways and the developers a couple of weeks ago. It became evident that Mr Townsend had forgotten a meeting they had earlier and had to be reminded by the developer. This is not helpful, of course, but it does show a lack of the Highways have shown no interest in our neighbourhood plan, one iota. And as I said in my summation, that all the relevant authorities should and are duty bound to take these papers into consideration before they make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Any more questions for Councillor Ratcliffe? Not Councillor Ratcliffe, sorry, Councillor Crozier. See Councillor Ratcliffe's hand up. I will bring Mr. Townsend in just a second on that one, but I was just checking if there are any other members. Mr. Townsend, are you able to come back with a response, please, to Councillor Crozier's comment regarding Highways engagement with the neighbourhood plan? Thank you.
Yes, I am. I'm slightly confused by Councillor Crozier's comment, to be honest, because I believe my line manager, Mr. Hensley, did an investigation into my response to that comment in the meeting. When the developer made reference to a meeting that I had had previously, I was not in the position to be able to confirm at that time because I was on a phone call into that meeting rather than using my computer. I was not at a position to confirm that I had not attended a meeting. So I said, as far as I was aware, I did not attend a meeting. When I checked all my records afterwards, and as Mr. Hensley has confirmed to the Parish Council in writing, and it was copied to your lead planning officer, Patrick Weimer, that meeting did not take place, and I can confirm that that is the case. And also, the applicant had apologised in his email to me following that meeting, saying he was sorry because he thought he had involved me and he hadn't.
Thank you very much. What I don't want to get bogged down in is the whys, wherefores of regarding the neighbourhood plan that isn't relevant to this particular planning application, and who did and who didn't. So we just need to remind members that we are looking at the application that we have before us on its merits, and that we have the officer's update, which we have all had sight of and which has been presented to us by the planning officer. Councillor Crozier, I do have other people waiting to come in for questions. So I think in terms of your presentation to the committee, I will say thank you very much for your presentation. And
I just wanted to remind Mr. Townsend that I had a meeting with him and Councillor Lamb on the 25th of September before this application became in, when Burrington's announced their intention to develop this site, and we discussed Bedford Street as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you for your presentation, and we will, I believe that Ms. Houslander, did you have something that you could add on this particular issue?
Sorry, yes, Chair, thank you very much. I just wanted to confirm about the meeting, Councillor. My reference to the fact that it was a positive meeting was not necessarily with regard to the outcome, but with regard to the fact that everyone at the meeting was able to air their views and we were able to discuss all of those views at the meeting. At the end of the meeting, the parish council were still, I think, concerned about the highway issues on this proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Ratcliffe, I know you had a question from Ms Houselander.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I have, if I may. So that I can fully understand the implications or the options of the B2257 entrance. It would be helpful if I knew the length of the boundary, the northern boundary, which abuts the 3257. There's no visual scale on the drawing submitted, and I think it could possibly be around about 50 metres plus. But so that we can fully understand the visibility displays for a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, are you able at the moment, or can you come back to say approximately how long is that northern boundary? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I think it's approximately 57 metres.
Thank you. And just to go back and to confirm again, if the 30 mile per hour speed limit became possible, just to confirm those visibility displays, which is 4.5 metres back from the curb, and that will be in the centre line of the access road. Can you confirm in either direction what that display will be again, please?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, it would actually be 2.4 metres back from the carriageway.
2.4.
I think it was confirmed by Mr Townsend earlier that it would be 43 metres in each direction.
Right, thank you very much.
Okay. Before I bring in Councillor Hipsey, Mrs Folds, did you wish to say something?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. It was just a number of comments had been made about the statutory duty to consider all local plans, neighbourhood plans. That certainly there is a statutory duty to ensure that all plans are considered, but I think there's a slight confusion in how the highways officers would consider the neighbourhood plans. I don't think there is any duty on them to come up with an alternative scheme that is using the preferred route. They have to assess the schemes that have been provided to them, and then it's a matter for us as the decision-making authority, you as members and us as officers, in order to give you a recommendation and to ensure that we have properly considered the neighbourhood plan. You've got the reasons why the preferred access is not being used, and you have to make an assessment whether you're satisfied with those reasons, and certainly when looking at the neighbourhood plan. I do think the officers have correctly highlighted the policy in H2 of the plan to say that if it does not prove feasible, an alternative access onto Woolacombe Road would be acceptable, and I think that is exactly what you're doing now. So I would just like to reassure members that we are properly considering the neighbourhood plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Weimer.
Thank you, Chair. Just for members' benefit, I'm just going to share my screen, which has got the relevant extract of the neighbourhood plan on, if you can see that.
Can you enlarge it a little bit? It's
I don't know how to do that. Yes.
There we go, that's better. And then it'll need to scroll up a bit. Lovely,
yeah,
thank you.
So this is the allocation within the neighbourhood plan. Too far, sorry. And the relevant pieces here. So the preferred site access should be directly on the main road. Why is it not going to do it? However, sorry, Tavistock B3257 into out of the bridge. However, if this does not prove feasible, an alternative access onto Woolacombe Road would be acceptable. That's the policy of the neighbourhood plan, and I think it's in respect to this. I think the officer's view is that It's been demonstrated that the access onto the B3257 is feasible. It's for members to decide whether you agree with that view or not, and hence why we are supportive of the access onto Woolacombe Road. But from my perspective, I don't share the view that officers have ignored the neighbourhood plan, because I believe the neighbourhood plan does say that an alternative access onto Woolacombe Road would be acceptable in that set of circumstances.
Thank you.
Just for the clarification, thank you.
Thank you. I've Councillor Hipsey and Councillor Crozier, who both have got hands up for questions. Councillor Hipsey.
Thank you, Chair. This actually is going back a little bit, and really, I suppose I'm asking for an amplification of what the answer that Councillor Ratcliffe was given. I'm having difficulty understanding the relevance of the speed limit. I know at the moment that the speed limit 30-mile-an-hour sign is very close to the junction to Down Road, and it will. The proposal is to move it further out of Beerferris. Now, if that is done, if the 30-mile-an-hour limit is moved further towards Tavistock, if you like, does that make the entrance onto Bedford Road feasible, please? I think that's probably a question for Mrs. Houseland. I'm not sure.
Oh, Mr. Townsend.
Maybe Phil.
No, Mr. Townsend's more than happy to answer that question.
Yeah.
Sightlines are dependent either on the speed limit of a road or the 85th percentile prevailing speed of a road. If the speed limit were to be relocated, that would allow the speed limit, the sightline requirement to be reduced to 43 metres from what it currently is, which will be based on the 85th percentile speed of vehicles passing the site. The 43 metres is the reduced sightline requirement for a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and that is what has been considered on the plan that had been tabled and presented earlier on, but which does not form part of this planning application. So even with the reduced speed limit and the reduced sightline requirement, there are still difficulties for the applicant providing the sightlines necessary for the access onto the B3257.
Right, that's perfectly clear. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier, did you have a question?
My question is in two parts. One, that this is one of the problems when we don't have any site visits, because it becomes much more logical once you view the road when you're stood on it. This site is fairly narrow. I've seen various measurements, 56, 57 and 58 metres the length of their frontage.
Councillor Crozier, please.
Not enough to get displayed.
Councillor Crozier, please, could you come to your question?
I've already intimated in my speech earlier that there is 34 metres of bowling club display already there before you get to the boundary of the new development.
Councillor Crozier,
furthermore,
please.
from that, you don't need any more in that direction because the road bends away.
Councillor Crozier, Councillor Crozier, please could you get to your question?
Sorry.
Please could you get to your question? Thank you.
What's going on?
You need to speak here.
Councillor Crozier, we can hear what you're saying, but you sounds if you're speaking in debate rather than what this were in questions.
Well, the question I have is, with the good auspices of the adjoining landowners, I don't think the developers have had made any approach to see if they could use some of their land. And secondly, who owns the hedge line? A lot of the hedge line is actually owned by highways, I believe.
So your question, from what I can hear, is you're asking who owns the hedge line. That's what I heard your question to be.
Yes. Yeah.
Is anybody able to answer that particular question? it's owned by the developer or if it's owned by.
I can help. I can't say who owns it, but I can tell you that the Highway Authority don't own it.
Thank you.
And Chair, if I could just say that the red line for the application site runs down the middle of the hedgerow. So I'm assuming from that the applicant owns the inner part of the hedgerow.
Okay,
thank you. If not all of it.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Moyes.
Sorry, wasn't Councillor Crozier not asking whether the owners of the adjacent land would be prepared to sell it, or was it, I think he asked whether there was any discussions with them?
The applicant submitted the application that they asked us to consider, which is the application which is currently before you. They indicated to us that the land was not within their ownership and therefore they were unable to carry out the visibility display to the north of the site. So I'm not aware of any discussions, but we are being asked to consider the application that's currently before you, not one with a northern entrance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, so I think we have certainly given plenty of airtime this morning, despite all the disruptions of losing connectivity. So I think we now need to move this into debate. So for that to happen, I need to move the officer's recommendation, which is as laid out on page 11 of your agenda, which is to delegate to the head of practice lead development management in conjunction with the chairman to conditionally grant planning permission subject to a section 106 legal obligation for following contributions as outlined on page 11. Just to be clear, by moving it and second it is not an indication as to how members wish to vote. It is just to enable it to get into debate. So could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much, members. We are. Thank you. We are now in debate. I can see Councillor Pearce's, Councillor Crozier's hand up. Is that a legacy hand? No, okay. Members, over to you if any member wishes to speak in debate. Councillor Hipsey.
Thank you, Chair. This is obviously a very difficult one with a lot of opinions being voiced on both sides. As far as I'm concerned, the critical document here is the neighbourhood plan. And Mrs. Folser has already indicated that it is an important part of our duty today to consider the neighbourhood plan and how it fits into this decision. Mr. Weimer has very kindly shown us an important extract from the neighbourhood plan, which I'll just read back to you very briefly. The preferred site access should be directly onto the main road to Tavistock, in and out of the village. This is the important bit. However, if this does not prove possible or feasible, an alternative access onto Woolacombe Road would be acceptable. So I think the turning point of this debate to me is the very short part of that statement that says, if this does not prove feasible. My view is that given the weight of opinion from local people, including local members of West Devon Borough Council and the Parish Council, and the fact that it is shown up in the neighbourhood plan, I would be inclined to favour a route onto Bedford Road as an outcome of this debate. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to make members aware that that actually isn't an option, we do need to actually determine the application that is before us. Okay. That is the, as Councillor Hibbs' just last bit saying what he would favour, but that isn't an option that we've got under this actual application. Councillor Moyes.
Yes, I again don't like this very much. I think with the other development coming up, there are just going to be too many houses and their vehicles coming out onto Woolacombe Road.
Thank you. Councillor Renders.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I did actually go and visit, and I agree with what Councillor Crozier said. When you actually stand there and look at it, although I didn't know the area particularly well at the time, I think I do now. I have to agree with them. And I also was going to say exactly what Councillor Hipsey said, word for word, really, about the fact that although it alludes to that it is allowable to put it onto the other road, it's after it. After all things have been considered, and I do not feel that that has been considered in its entirety. So I'm not sure about this one. Thank you.
Any other member wish to speak? I think I would like to say, just as a member of the committee, of course, is Councillor Pearce.
Chairman, I have very grave concerns about the way that we've got to this point in time. It really is very worrying, and my concern is that there's been no acceptance of how busy Willicombe Road is, and with two dangerous junctions, one each end of it. And, you know, when you look at the balance of it, although the splay would be larger on Bedford Street for some unknown reason, I've gone through it all and I've tried to work it all out. But Willicombe Road is, I believe, is far more dangerous, knowing the area and having travelled that road a lot when I used to go down to Weir Quay sailing. It really is, you know, the amount of traffic that's there during the summer is quite substantial. And I think, you know, the highways officer has not picked up on this. I mean, all they go by is the accidents that occur and when injuries or death takes part. But those of us that know the area know how busy that Willicombe Road is and how dangerous it can be on those junctions. And to me, nothing has been done to try and sort this out. When I asked for a deferral last month of this application, I was hoping to sort it out so that we could come to a sensible solution for the entrance coming out onto Willicombe Road and some improvement to those junctions. I know it's difficult because the land at the junctions is not in the ownership of the developer or the applicant or in the ownership of highways, but you know, negotiations should have been carried out, I believe, with the landowners to try and get those junctions sorted out, or one of them anyway. So therefore, regrettably, I cannot support the officer's recommendation as it stands at the moment for this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey, your hand is up again. Is it a legacy hand?
No, it's not. I don't know whether I can. I'd just like to cite a policy in the JLP that kind of might be relevant, if that's okay, Chair.
Okay, what have you got?
I've got TTV 24, paragraph 1, paragraph D, which talks about the Willicombe Road, Beer Alston, which I'm assuming is the same development that we're talking about. Subparagraph D tells us that we should be ensuring that proposals are well integrated with the existing development. So in my opinion, that is not the case here. This is on page 235, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
There we go. Thank you, Chairman. I personally wish to fully endorse the views of the previous councillors who have spoken, and therefore I really cannot support the officer's recommendation in this instance, and would encourage further negotiations on the ownership of land to allow the access to come off of the Bedford Road. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Cheadle.
I'd just like to make the comment that this, I think from my knowledge, is the first time this committee has been presented with an argument, if you like, about the validity of neighbourhood plans versus other views. And so I think many will see this as a measure of how valuable or otherwise neighbourhood plans are. Somehow or other, we've managed to upset the owners of the neighbourhood plan, and I think we owe it to the hours of hard work that go into neighbourhood plans to do better than that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm just going to add in, just as a ward member, is that this is an allocated site, and the neighbourhood plan does allow for that alternative access. So I'm just a little bit concerned if members were to decide that the majority that we're going to refuse this allocation, they would have to do some fairly strong material grounds, I think, to overcome that. I fully empathise with concerns that the locals have, and certainly with the congestion. I am familiar with the B3257 and that route down. Used to go into Beer Alston regularly for work, so I do know that road, and I know the road into Beer Alston and Beer Ferries isn't an easy road at the best of times, much less the side roads. But I think members do need to be minded that it is an allocated site for 30 homes to be on it. Any other member wish to speak in debate? Councillor Cheadle is our legacy hand.
Sorry about that. It's a legacy hand. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. In which case, then we will take this to the vote, and I will ask Mrs. Hall then if you can please take the vote. And we have before us a recommendation, which is to delegate to the head of planning as outlined on page, I think it was 11 of the agenda papers. Councillor Mott, you were a late incomer.
Sorry, Chair. I just wanted to be clear, please, that the extra conditions had been added and are under members' consideration, because we've got nothing on screen to show those.
Yes, good point. They were. Mrs. Houselander, you have added those conditions, haven't you, into the...
Yes, Chair. Sorry, yes, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right, okay, Mrs. Hall, if you could take the vote, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask the members if you can answer in turn if you heard all the presentation and were present throughout? Thank you. Councillor Cheadle.
Yes, I've been here throughout and heard everything, and I'm against the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier. Councillor Crozier.
Chair, I can't guarantee I've heard all the debate, but because I'm intimately involved with this one, I've heard enough to say that I'm against the recommendation.
Can I just clarify, please, Councillor Crozier? We have stopped everything when you have been offline and restarted when you have been online. Therefore, can you confirm, please, that you have heard everything? Otherwise, you will not be able to vote.
Therefore, I have heard everything, if I've had that assurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
I've heard the entire debate, and I vote against the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Mott.
Thank you. I have been present throughout the entire debate and have heard everything, and I support the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
I've heard the whole debate and will vote against.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
I have heard the whole debate, and unfortunately I cannot support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
I can confirm that I have heard the entire debate and I'm against the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Renders.
Yes, I can confirm that I was here and heard all the debate, and I also am against the officer's recommendation on this one. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Vachon.
Yes, I can confirm I was here throughout, heard all the presentation, and I'm for the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. And Councillor Yelland.
I confirm I was present throughout, heard all the debate, and I vote for officer's recommendation.
Thank you. So that's 7 against and 3 for.
Okay, members. So that is lost, as is refused. So next move now, members, is for material planning reasons. Could I have a proposal, please?
Chairman, Councillor Terry Pearce here. I wish he'd kill that robin.
Please, could everybody put yourselves on mute, please, if you're not. Thank you.
I propose that the application is refused on the grounds that the highway concerns, which are, it is felt that the justification for using Woolacombe Road and thereby ignoring the preferred entrance onto Bedford Street is not made.
Okay, I'm just making note. Hang on. So the highways concerns justification for using Woolacombe Road. Sorry, what was the next bit?
Instead of the preferred entrance onto Bedford Street, the case is not made for the justification of using Woolacombe Road, which is considered to be a much more dangerous option.
Okay. Case is not made for the. I'm sorry, I'm writing as you're speaking, so.
Sorry.
Yeah. Just because you've got the case is not made for the
justification of using Woolacombe Road instead of the preferred option of Bedford Street. Sorry, yeah. I'm going too fast for you, aren't I?
Yeah, I've got that far.
My apologies, right.
The case is not made for the.
In justifying the use of the entrance into Woolacombe Road rather than Bedford Street, which is the preferred option in the neighbourhood plan, and it is believed that the Woolacombe Road is much more dangerous.
Right, Woolacombe Road much more dangerous. Okay, got the sense of that. Is I mean, this would have been taken down by the officers in probably a far better writing than mine. Mr. Weimer, are you able to help with some of the wording, perhaps?
Not at the moment.
I think that's an unfair ask, to be honest, Chairman.
Yes, I was. Yes, sorry.
Chairman, it's okay. I'll come back to you once any other members have spoken. Yes. When I first put my hand up, it was to seek some clarification that Councillor Pearce then did go on with your to clarify what was meant by highway concerns, and I think I've got that, but I'll come back. I'll try and put something into planning speak at the end and come back when the rest of the members have spoken, if that's okay.
Thank you. And just for clarification, Councillor Pearce, I wasn't suggesting that Mr. Weimer came up with the reasons. I was. No. It was along the wording rather than the reasons. Councillor Hipsley.
Thanks, Chair. Really, I was just going to ask that we include reference to the neighbourhood plan, which I think in his sort of second statement, Councillor Pearce did that, so I'm grateful for that. I wonder if we can also perhaps, and I'd look to Mr. Weimer perhaps for guidance on this one, whether we really do have something to say about TTV 24, because to my mind, really what we're doing is discussing whether the proposals integrate well with the existing development, in particular the roads.
Just look at getting a TT 24 out. Chair,
I can come back if that helps.
Yes, please.
I've got the section of TTV 24 in front of me. It's such a catch-all phrase, isn't it? Ensuring that proposals are well integrated within the existing development. And my initial reading of that was more around scale, mass, design, rather than highway issues, if I'm honest. And I think if you're looking for policy backing, for want of a better phrase, for the highways issue, I think the neighbourhood plan policy is far more precise on that, albeit I still stick by the officer recommendation, very much so. But I mean, it's up to members. It's members in interpretation. It'll be then up to members to argue that point in front of an inspector if you feel that is the case. I think it's a decision that it's open to you to make. But my feeling is was probably drafted more in terms of scale, massing, and design rather than highway point itself.
Yeah, it's a shame there's not more detail there. I admit, but that was what was worrying me. Was that, you know, I was under the impression that we were really discussing those words, really, whether the proposals are well integrated with the existing development. That's the way I read it, was that would be an overarching statement, and the existing development would be that part of the village in general, including the highways.
Mrs. Folds.
Thank you, Chair. Just my own thoughts just on reading of that. If you look further in within TT 24, there are examples where it talks about the roads and sort of footpath, cycle access, and more highways things. So I think it is difficult to go down that route. But as Councillor Hipsey is suggesting on respect of TTV 24, I'm afraid.
Councillor Mott.
Thank you, Chair. As your representative, as it were, on the JLP Partnership Board and the lead member for Neighbourhood Planning, my interpretation of the JLP would be that as described by Mr. Weimer, if that helps, in that that wording about integrating into the wider landscape would be about the mass, scale and design, as opposed to just highways issues, which is what seemed to be discussed at the moment.
I'd agree with that, Chairman. I mean, the development that's placed before us is not the problem. It's purely the highways access.
So we're looking at the actual neighbourhood plan policy, which was T4, if my memory serves me correctly. Oh gosh, here we go again. Councillor Crozier, you had your hand up.
Just to say that future developments, it might impede future development. Oh, sorry.
I have removed Councillor Reid
Hello,
from the meeting, so it should be fine for Councillor Crozier now. That's where the feedback was coming in.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crozier. Councillor Crozier, we can hear you.
Oh dear, what am I doing?
You're able to speak now, Councillor Crozier.
Now
I've been cut off. You've been cut off.
Councillor Crozier.
Oh, well, it started whistling again.
No, Councillor Crozier, we can hear you.
Councillor Crozier, you have your hand up to speak. Councillor Crozier, if you wish to speak, could you do so? Okay, I will put Councillor Crozier, I'll ask officers to put Councillor Crozier on mute a second while he sorts himself out, and bring in Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to suggest a way of extricating ourselves out from the current difficulty. Our obligation is to give the neighbourhood plan equal weight to the local plan, the joint local plan. And I think from what I've heard of the debate, members are concerned that the preferred option as outlined in the neighbourhood plan has not been given sufficient attention. I think my listening of the debate is that it's been dismissed too readily. And what they would like to happen is for the preferred option in the neighbourhood plan, which must be given weight, to be properly considered, and they're not convinced that it has been.
Thank you. It's a good summary, and it is
I hope that helps.
It is policy T4. That's what I was looking. That's what I was actually looking for. Thank you, Councillor Crozier. did you wish to come back in? Have you got your sound back on? Okay, we can't seem to raise Councillor Crozier on this one, but we've had a proposal from Councillor Councillor Pearce, wasn't it? Sorry, I didn't even write down who made the proposal, and I think Councillor Hipsey possibly might have seconded it. Is that correct?
I don't think there's been a seconder yet.
No, there hasn't actually been a seconder, but I think you're from. I was getting the sense that you were seconding it, but then we all got a bit bogged down in the technology.
I didn't second it, Chair, but I'm prepared to.
You're prepared to do so, Mr. Weimer.
Thank you, Chair. I'll get rid of it. Bringing forward what's been said by Councillors Pearce, Hipsey, and Councillor Cheadle. Can I suggest that any recommendation is any vote on a refusal is a refusal with the precise wording of the reason for refusal delegated to the head of DM in conjunction with the chair, proposer and seconder, so rather than absolutely nailing it each comma and full stop now, but it will be along the lines of: it has not been demonstrated that an access onto the B3257 is not feasible, and that the proposed access is would cause pose greater risks to highway safety and users of the highway, and as such the proposal will be contrary to policies. I think it's H2 and T3 of the neighbourhood plan. We can double check that before we finalise, but it's that specific policy in the neighbourhood plan that allocates the site and puts the element in around where the preferred access is. Thank you.
Chairman, could I just come in there? I think there should be something when the safety of highway users, I can't remember the exact wording now that Mr. Weimer used, but I think there should be a reference to the dangerous junctions in that, because that is why the highway safety, it's not the actual entrance out onto Willicombe Road itself, but it's the accumulation of traffic with those two dangerous junctions. And I think there should be reference to those junctions.
Is the seconder happy for that?
I think that's me.
Yes,
yes.
It is.
Yes,
yes.
I am.
Yes.
But I'd also just throw in, just to muddy things a bit more, sorry, whether we might be also looking at Dev 29, paragraph 1, which states that we need to consider the impact of development on the wider transport network.
Okay, Dev, what did you say, 21?
29.
Oh, 29, sorry,
so
29.
Page 291.
291, yeah.
The first paragraph.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a bit nebulous, but that's effectively, I think, what we're trying to say, that we're not happy with the way the development in its current form would integrate with the wider transport network in Willicombe Road in this case.
Yeah, okay, and providing safe, actually, and satisfactory traffic movement and vehicular access.
Yeah, and paragraph 2.
Yeah, I mean, within the site isn't an issue, it's the 2. Okay, so I think we have plenty there. Councillor Vachon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just getting very, very confused with this, because I'd understood that the refusal for this particular application was, the recommendation was to delegate to the head of practice and in conjunction with the chairman. And we seem to be discussing the actual plan itself. I'm just a bit at odds at what we're trying to achieve here. This isn't the actual planning application; it's the recommendation to delegate that planning permission at this stage. So how does this relate to this?
Mr. Weimer.
I'll try and be brief. The members have clearly not approved the application and are now looking for with a motion to refuse the application. Now, there are two options here. If members wish to draft out now a reason for refusal that then gets voted on, then it doesn't need to be delegated. But what we would normally do would be for members to vote on I suppose the skeleton of a reason for refusal, that then the absolute final wording is agreed by the proposer, the seconder, myself and the lawyer before it gets issued. But given that the clear officer recommendation is for approval and clearly officers support this application, it cannot be down to any of the officers to write the reason for refusal. It has to follow what the members' views are. So it's absolutely down to the members of the committee to set out what the reasons are. The only reason for it being delegated is just to absolutely approve the precise specific wording of the reason, but the reason has to come from members. And as and when it goes to an appeal, then officers would be looking for support from the proposer and the seconder back in the appeal. So I've got to remind members that we do not have any objections from the highways officer on highway grounds on this application.
Okay.
I am aware of that, Mr. Weimer and Chairman.
Councillor Mott.
Thank you, Chair. Can I, for ease, suggest that the wording be as such, bearing in mind that I supported the application going forward, that the wording could possibly be that members consider that the neighbourhood plan preference for the B, my apologies for not knowing the road number, has not fully been considered in line with policies H2 and T3 of the neighbourhood plan.
That's very simply put. Going back to the proposer and the seconder, are you happy with those as the reasons and with paragraph 2 of Dev 29?
That's a good start, but I think there ought to be reference to the danger within Willicombe Road, which is not going to be included if we have the sentence put forward by Councillor Mott. I mean, the overriding issue here is not only the use of the entrance not coming out on the preferred entrance, coming out onto Bedford Street, but it's the danger that is known by locals, and unless you actually there and do a site visit, you cannot appreciate how busy that road is and how dangerous those junctions are, especially in the holiday season.
I appreciate that, Councillor Pearce. However, my suggestion is mindful of the highways officer's recommendation also.
And taking into account, you need a policy to back that up, Councillor Pearce.
Right. We had a similar circumstances at Lamerton, and the planning inspector there realised the dangerous road that we had in Lamerton. And I think, you know, the same thing would occur here if we, you know, make it clear that the reasons why, that it's the danger of Willicombe Road, and also not the preferred option under the neighbourhood plan.
Yes, and not to forget, of course, that the other allocation, as in fact, the other allocation with South Willicombe would have funded, or Section 106 would have sorted out the, well, one would hope, sorted out the Collar Down Junction.
Well, we don't know when that's coming forward, do we?
No, we don't. Anyway, we are where we are. So I think we need to take this to the vote, because we can be going around this one forever and a day, I think. So we have reasons set before us. So if anybody's not clear on those reasons, can you indicate? Okay, thank you. We will take this to the vote then, please, Mrs. Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Cheadle.
I agree.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier.
I agree.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
I've heard the debate and I agree.
Thank you. Councillor Mott.
Yeah,
Sorry, Councillor Mott.
No, I'm sorry, members, I'm going to go against.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
I agree.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
I agree.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
I also agree.
Thank you. Councillor Renders.
Yes, I agree too.
Thank you. Councillor Vachon.
I abstain.
Thank you. And Councillor Yelland.
For.
Thank you. So that's 8 in agreement, 1 against and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, we would normally have been starting the next application, which would have been due to start at 2:45 and 11:45. We have obviously, this application has run on a lot later than we intended. Equally, there is at 12 o'clock going to be the 1-minute silence, which the local authority will be observing and which I think we should do in public. So I am actually minded now for us to adjourn to give everybody a chance to have a screen break with their eyes screen break and comfort break. And please could I ask that everybody is back here for 11:58 and we will then observe the 1-minute silence at 12 noon and then we will continue then with the Glanville Road application at 12:01. Okay, members, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chairman.